Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my show. My name is Sandy Glaze. I'm a personal transformation and self-development coach, and today we have Desiree Holmes Scherini with me again to talk a little more about just current events, what's going on. And we want to talk about discernment because we're seeing right now, but so many people are trying to sway our thoughts and what we think and what direction they want us to go in. That maybe if we can share some insights about discernment and use of discernment and what its role is, that maybe we can help people stay in their center when they're going through all of this. So how are you doing today, Desiree?
I'm happy to be here with you and just,
Yeah, no, very
settling in for
relaxing.
a great conversation. So thank you.
For sure. So we were talking about what we are going to talk about yesterday, and this is the topic that came up was the topic of discernment. Would you like to share what you think discernment is for people?
Yeah. Um, so, obviously it can mean many things, but I think when we're talking about the bigger picture of discernment, it's having an awareness. First, you have to be aware before you can discern. Okay. So there are steps to being having discernment in your life. And I will caveat to when one has discernment in their life as part of their way of being, they will be happier. They will be more in flow. They won't be having inner conflict. And they may have outer conflict because others without discernment or don't respect your own discernment will try to buffer you. And that's where discernment is so important. So discernment is seeing, being aware, and then checking in with yourself and reality. Okay, is this real? Is this true? Is this right for me? Do I agree with this? Is this someone else's idea or is this mine? And really spending time when you're faced with an idea, an ideology, what's trending. We were just talking about that a moment before off camera. What's trending? And instead of just going, yeah, stop, stop, and analyze this. So that's my long
Totally.
answer to discernment.
And I think it's a good answer because you put a lot of moving parts to it. So discernment isn't just one that you just look at something and make a snap decision. You have to understand your values, understand your morals, understand, is this harmful to myself? Is this harmful to somebody else? And when we're looking at discernment right now, we see a lot of media information coming out that's maybe questionable for some people. Some people don't believe it's true. And I'm not here to tell anybody what to think. I'm beyond trying to show people what I think is what. I'm now watching to see who gets it and who doesn't. Like I'm
Yeah.
looking to see, what they call the tribe that comes in. But I think discernment is intelligent use of information is what it is. So information is going to come in, but how do you find it as intelligent? Is it right for you? Is somebody trying to sway you? And even the last time we talked, we had gone in. We're not going to say the situation, but just the situation. Say what the situation is, but not the person. But somebody all of a sudden wants to get you running, and what doesn't matter who it is, but then they'll come out with one suggestion, then they come out with another suggestion, they come out with another suggestion, and you can just see they have an agenda.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
discernment, it can also be setting boundaries, but not letting on that they have an agenda, because that'll just get you conflict and they'll turn it on you. So discernment is so important right now. And did you want to talk about what happened? You had said your last one, you made comments and you're just asking people questions and they piled on you. And what that one was about, I don't want to go into that one for too long, but there's individual discernment and there's a collective discernment when you're seeing what they're doing to somebody else. Is this the right thing to do?
Well, shall I go into the specifics?
Don't maybe
Okay.
say the word. Don't say the word. Just use the
Okay.
crown kind of thing.
Okay. So on my social media page, my private one, I I didn't even actually say anything. I put a picture up, say that was supposed to be kind of funny because I thought, well, this is really kind of weird, right? So I comment, the picture suggested that something was unusual, and I feel like I don't know if we talked about this last time, but it feels like it, nonetheless. I'm like, this is unusual. And it was adults dressed up in odd ways around small children, not as clowns. Um,
And very
not as,
inappropriate clothing.
well, what I would say
Very,
is inappropriate and confusing.
yeah.
Confusing to young children, like what's what. And so this is where I'm going with it. And so maybe I'm sure the listeners can guess what that is because it's something that's been trending. And here I get into, oh, it's trending. And so what will happen? And it could be the other way around, it could be something that's on the opposite side of what would I say, conservative values. So this would be very unconservative, that
Not
like,
even
yeah, let it all
conservative.
out, whatever is whatever, and there are
Limits, no
no
boundaries.
standards,
Yeah.
and it challenges the truth.
And it's illegal. That behavior to do that in front of children when you're barely dressed, that is illegal. So even outside of whether it's conservative or liberal or not, it's illegal. So
Yeah,
the act itself
but
is harmful to children.
it's trending,
Yes.
and it's trending because there are people that have control or power or whatever to put things in place to tie it to representing something that they're saying, well, this is about freedom, this is about choice.
Right.
Okay. um
They're flipping freedom and choice what it really is, if it's in your best interest or not. They're
yeah,
trying to get children to do things that are not in their best interest. That's not freedom
yeah,
for
they're
them.
creating an association between two things that are actually not related.
Yes.
Okay. So it's like, it's just entertainment for little children, they say. uh but it's I would label it inappropriate entertainment for little children. Okay. Others would say, oh, but it's teaching them not to be what's the right word, it's teaching them to be open-minded and not to,
Too open, their
but
brains will fall out.
and
If you're that
I
open-minded, your brains have
so
fallen out.
so on the other hand, there are other ways to embrace and teach love, and open heartedness toward
Totally.
everyone. Okay. So
Yes.
what happens is that it's like, well, if you don't agree that this is okay and this is normal, then we hate you.
Oh,
So
totally.
it turns into a big thing, and it's like, well, I can love someone, but not say, okay, it's all right for you to go into a kindergarten and display that.
Right.
Okay.
And there's different
um
types of love. You can be unconditionally loving, but it's not about tolerance. You're not a doormat. You're not going to accept
yeah,
somebody's choice or what
yeah,
they want to impose on you if you don't agree with it,
yeah.
right? That's why this is
So
discernment is really good.
yeah, so this was the discerning part, weaving back to that. So you know I was like, okay, I think this is unusual, and it is unusual, as but it's become trending. Therefore, trending and being a poster
Acceptable.
child, or sticker. I talk today. I've only had one cup of coffee. A sticker representing something bigger when it's not. It's not. Just because. So people will start defending something without discernment, without stopping to say, well, is this right? Is this necessary? Is this the right way to pursue our agenda, which would be to have people be more accepting regardless of one's identity.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I
But
know.
it, it's like saying, when you're a little kid and your mom wants you to eat the vegetables. Okay. And so there's different ways of having you accept different vegetables. You might cook them up a little differently, or you might, make them tasty. Okay, so for those kids that like vegetables, and they're like, yeah, that's fun. I want all these vegetables. Well, that's fine. But if there's a child who's more discerning and says, I really can't stand cauliflower, It makes me want to vomit. I don't want cauliflower no matter what you do to it. Okay, that's discernment. It's like, no, it's not, it doesn't work with my system. Sorry, mom. Now, the difference is it comes to a point, and this is where we start talking about what's coming at you.
Right,
What's around you? Do you just go ahead and eat it and throw up?
right,
Or or do you say, no, I'm not? But then there's the overpowering mom who will hold the child down, shove it down his throat, close his mouth, and say, chew it and swallow, because she has a power agenda, not a love agenda.
right. And that's an
Okay.
abusive mother parent that would do that either.
And so in society, if someone has a value that they believe that everyone should have, they believe everyone should take all of it, regard. So the kid's eating his peas and his green beans and everything, but she's got that power thing. You've got to eat this too. This is my metaphor for, okay, you know what, you do you, I do me, and keep it at home. If it's something that belongs in the bedroom, close the door. I don't want to see it, right? Whatever, it's your thing. I don't want you watching me, right?
But
But
when it involves the children, that's the problem
yeah,
within what you're describing.
and then to insist that we're going to feed it to the child.
And
We're
you're
going
the
to feed it
problem
to
if you
you,
don't.
and you better swallow, or you're going to be sorry. And
That's
this
about
is what, yeah,
it.
this is where we are. This is how it is, as a metaphor.
You just described almost a sociopathic presentation style that they're putting upon us. You'll do it my way because I said so.
Yeah, I have because I said so. I have the power.
Right.
And whoever, yeah, guess what? Because I said so.
Because I said
And
so.
it's because I believe it, so therefore you believe it too. And back to discernment and your comment about quiet discernment sometimes, because if someone is so, stuck on their trend in their belief system, and that would be me too. It's like, don't try to convince me to believe what you believe. And therefore, we can't always try to convince someone. But as we were commenting last time we talked about being open-minded,
Right.
listening with respect to opinions is not the same as shoving it down each other's throats.
Exactly. And it's
And just,
interesting, the
yeah,
professions that are protecting them right now. So if anybody protests, there's people with guns protecting that show and not the parents standing up or the people standing up saying, what are you doing? But then we always say, well, nobody protects the children. Why doesn't it stop? Because it's supported by the system itself. So a lot of things need to be looked at. So because somebody
yeah.
wears a uniform doesn't mean that they have more power than you. They shouldn't have it. Or because they belong to a certain profession doesn't mean they have more power than you. They have a different skill set, a different level of knowledge in one particular area, which may be good or bad. It still comes up to their discernment, how they use that information that they have.
And that's the same in everything from teachers to politicians to parents, you
Right.
know? Yeah.
Totally.
And so we have to really get to know yourself, and you talked about morals a moment ago. Know your morals and your values. Some people honestly don't even think about it. What are my values? And
They
as a
drive
life
them
coach,
encouraged. Yes.
as life coaches, and this is where I was talking about, if someone is in touch and they know and they discern that their life will flow more easily. And if you sit down, listeners, if you will sit down and write down, there's an exercise where you can write down the things that you enjoy. Okay, what you do, what feels right, and it might be family, it might be, write those things down, and then tie it to what value does that represent. And then you can start to identify, what are my values? Are my values safety? Are my values family? Are my values adventure? And identify what are your values and how do those values attach to any moral standards you have one way or the other.
Yes. And in
And
chapter 2 on my book, it's about how to be a safe person. I have a list of about 25 or 30. I'm just going to use them as call them words, but one might be justice, honesty, care for the elderly, care for the little ones. So there's a different selection. I'm not saying those are the only values that are out there, but it's not
yeah,
a bad idea to go and have a look, and especially if you have never been shown how to set your values. or never learned how to identify with them. Again, this goes back to being trendy. If you don't know what you stand for nothing. And then that's where those people can put their agenda upon you to get you to do things. And you might be doing it only because it's trendy, because you don't know who you are. And that's what we
Yeah.
were saying earlier. Now we're starting to see who does and who doesn't maybe have a strong sense of self, because it's the ones who don't have a
Mhm.
strong sense of self that they're going after, because
Yeah,
they're
and
can be
they
turned
need a
easily.
group identity too,
Right,
the acceptance.
right.
And that's, for people that stand out against the trend, it does,
They're the ones who
it's good to
get,
have some strong core personal acceptance so that you're okay with yourself.
yes, totally. I wrote some things down. I've had these for a couple of years, but one on morality, and I posted this on I think it was Facebook a couple of years ago. And I'm just going to read a couple lines of it. It is a strong, morally principled person that holds a strong spiritual house. So if you don't know who you are, because spirituality, a lot of that is tied into the truth, being able to discern the truth. And people say there's your truth, my truth, subjective truth. We're not talking about that. Some things are true, some things are subjectively true, but some things
Yes.
are just true. And that nothing will change it. So if you see a person who's being deceptive, and you were talking about a show you were watching where this handsome man, everybody loved him, and turns out he was a dirty dog from what
Yeah.
you described, but he was using his looks and his charm to get past people.
Hmm.
Right? When a body is grounded in strong moral character, it can better align energetically and spiritually. And that's what you're saying again, because of that spiritual connection to truth. And we are in a war in our spirituality. Whoever controls the mind controls the soul. Who do we believe in this insane world? And I know neither one of us are trying to tell people what to think, but we're just showing that you have the right and you have the ability to practice discernment if you haven't had a lot of experience with it. Practice for discerning what's
Yeah.
the truth and what's not, because we're seeing a lot of games. And I'm not just talking in the public, like I'm seeing a lot of games personally that are being played upon people. And they don't want to speak up. So giving people the benefit of the doubt, I think those days are done. I think we're going to see what we stand for, and that's going to be where the bifurcation comes in. We're going to see who stands for what. But that was just one example you're giving of discernment, and you just put it out there. Is this odd? I can't remember what you put with the caption. Like this, is this unusual? So you didn't say anything one way or the other, just asked a question and
Well,
got
I
comfortable.
inferred that it was suspicious and unusual because I was sitting on the train and I saw a little card that says, if you see something suspicious or unusual, say something. And immediately came to mind this image, and I said, that's kind of funny. So
It
I
is.
I made a meme with an image from a kindergarten or young children with this entertainer, and I put that on top, and that's all I did. I took it down because I'm like, okay, people decided from me putting that up with no words. I think, my comment was like hashtag let kids be kids. Um, you
Even when you
know,
try to use a bit of sarcasm, it still backfires,
yeah.
right?
And
Make it
I was
light.
called a hater. I was called homophobic. I was called, and I'm like, wow, somebody has really taken the leap, haven't they? And this is what I'm saying. And I don't consider myself either of those. Ask a lot of my friends and family members. Um, I will say things that aren't trending and they will totally be misconstrued. Okay. Um,
And we're not just speaking
okay.
of one
So,
thing. We're talking a multitude
yes.
of topics. That was just one example that you were
Yeah.
sharing.
And, but people, this is what I'm talking about when I said something's trending and therefore it gets tied to a whole value of a different thing. And so because I said this is odd, or I think this is unusual, therefore some decided I was all sorts of things that I'm not. Um,
And sometimes that's a
yeah.
tactic. So what I find then, people who try to use intellect alone to be able to discern where they want the conversation to go, often they will do one of two things. They will distract or flip it back on you, distract it, make it about something that's not even related. And when they make it
Yes.
about something that's not related, I call that they're kicking the can down the conversation. So they'll take a talking point of something you said, make the comment. then you reply back, and then they take a talking point out of that comment. Meanwhile,
Yes.
4 comments later, it's nothing to do with the same conversation that you had, or the comment you made in the first place. These people know this. They do this intentionally. That's just one of the strategies they use, just to get the
actually, I'm very
conversation.
impressed with that now that you said that. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what happens, you know. And so
But they know what they're
my
doing.
comment could be, so you think this is normal?
Right.
You think this is normal? You know, because they took it totally someplace else. I said, no, that's not at all what this was supposed to mean. You know, I'm reading reading it. I usually listen to books on Audible, but I had Kindle open the other day, a book by Ingo Swann. If you know who he is. He was, he's passed on now, very interesting person. He was part of that remote viewing
Oh, okay, maybe I have heard of the
group,
name.
and he was an artist, and he was gay. He was very, interesting. And I only mentioned he was gay because hey, I'm
Hey, it matters now.
anyway, but he's it's almost like an instruction book
Okay.
for opening up your psychic abilities, talking about future, past, and present. And this chapter that I just read was about what is reality. And he goes all into this mind stuff, psychology side of it, and terminology, but he goes all the way into, perception, experience. And one of my podcasts some time ago was about the lens we see things through. And so discerning. So it's kind of interesting that we're having this conversation, because his was all about discerning and not letting things get, and he was talking about future seeing. He was talking about, psychic ability, not letting ourselves stop ourselves and say, oh, that doesn't make sense. So that's not true. That's not true. This isn't true. But the same things here. So just like I said, that one person said, because of that, she's this.
Right.
Without it being true, without discerning, without stopping and saying, okay, hang on. Why would this really be true because of that? It's because the veils, the lenses, the conceived biases
That we've all been given, we've all been subjected to. Yeah.
And we have our own. I have my own, which also has me go, wait a minute. But then I like to think often when I have that initial response, I will say, hold on, Desiree, stop, look, listen. Where's that coming from? Is this true? Is this not true? Is this fit with my values or not? Is this hurting someone else? Is this hurting me? And then I do that discerning step, and I decide to accept or reject what's
Or
coming
just
in.
wait because you don't have enough information. It's not that we have to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
But like what you're saying about discerning and about opening up our higher sensory perceptions, because there's a lot of solar energy coming on the planet right now. And I'm not pretending to know a lot about this, but they're saying it's coming from the sun. So when we're getting hit with winds and we're getting a lot of what they call downloads, that's changing our perception of what we know. So discernment doesn't mean you learn something and then we stop learning. We never learn anymore. So that's what we base our knowledge on. It's about keeping an open mind. So as our consciousness opens up even more, even what you're talking about, those extrasensory perceptions, remote viewing, whatever it is, we're going to see things or find things we didn't know. But I like how you talked about going inside, asking yourself right here, is this true? So I remember one time my hand on a tree, and as I was using my peripheral vision, I've got the tree just said, reach out. Okay. So my hand's on it, and I'm just looking, and I'm not looking at the tree necessarily, but out of my peripheral vision, I can see plasma shooting past my eyes. And I'm like, I've never seen plasma before. So we're starting to see things we didn't see before. So even when we think seeing is believing, maybe believing in certain things and knowing what's possible, or taking up a new subject matter, or I learn something about a subject you don't know anything about or want to change. And a lot of this is going to be the metaphysical. A lot of this is going to be Occult means hidden. There's so many avenues people can go down there. So people, whatever people decide to look at. But what we see is not the only reality. And that's part of the discernment as things happen in the unseen world before they land in the physical reality. So we still have to have
Yes.
discernment for things we can't see. But we're starting to watch and observe as who has discernment. And some people have it, some people block it. There's things I've said, I'm not ready for this yet. I talk about a lot of things, but there's some things I'm not quite ready for that one yet. But when the time comes, you ask that the intention, show me what's true. But when you can
Yeah.
read it in your body, then you become your own best expert and you trust yourself. So when somebody comes up and says, you know, you really should do A, B, C, and D, and it's like, no, you really should just turn around and go find somebody else. I'm
Yeah.
not
Or
buying
it's
into
like,
that.
thank you for sharing.
That's another one, right? Depends on
Yeah.
the personality trait of that
Yeah.
other individual, right? But this is why discernment is so important because so much is changing. And so I was going to say too, we're told the majority of people are nice. Who told you that? The narcissists and the sociopaths?
The
So some
one in
people
that
are and
movie I'm watching.
some people are and some people aren't. But the idea when they say most people are nice, you still have to decide whether you got the short straw and you're dealing with somebody. If you believe that, it's okay. But are you working and dealing with people who aren't very nice? So you still have to have that discernment to be able to understand if there's an agenda at play.
Yeah. And like I was saying about that character in the show, um, in the last week or so, I was dealing with some stuff, and there was somebody I met, nice as can be. Oh, let me, here, I can look that up for you here. And anyway, and then after volunteering help for my sister and I, then sends us a message asking for a commission.
So you know what they call that?
Sure.
Reciprocity. Psychopaths do it, child molesters do it. So what they do is they do something nice for you and they do it with a smile.
Yeah.
And that means you owe me now. So you have to do something nice for me.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
And it was someone who was a friend, not of mine, but of my sister's. And it was like, what? Like, if it was something that and he didn't, he says, oh, I can look that up for you. And it reminded me of like when you're in a city and the kids squirt your windshield while you're at the stoplight and you've got to pay them to make them wipe it off. But it
yes.
wasn't even that. I mean, I was like, wow, I've never, but I guess there are certain people, businesses where they don't do anything and they declare they did something and they think you, I would, anyway, it's not the way I operate.
No.
If,
But we're
and
starting to see who does operate that way because we're looking at the behaviors. We're not looking at the person. We're not looking at the actor that you're talking about in the show who's good looking because we confuse good looking with integrity and those two things are not related. And a lot of Hollywood maybe gave us that impression because they're all stars and they're all good looking or unique in appearance in one way or another, right?
Ted Bundy was good looking, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Nice looking guy.
And that's a
And
real good
such a
example. That's
nice
a
boy,
really
boy
good
next
example.
door.
So, and
Yeah.
we're not painting everybody out to be to that degree, of course, but just this discernment is going to be so
Yeah.
important going forward because we're going to see who doesn't have discernment. And the problem with not having discernment, I don't know if people are going to wait for them to figure it out. You move on. We have to keep moving on because we have to keep changing with these energies. And like I was saying about these solar energies, I'm finding a lot of people are saying they have new symptoms. One of them is
Mm.
dry mouth, achy teeth. They're
Oh,
getting dizzy. I'm hearing a lot of people are getting dizzy lately in the last little while. So, and some people are sleeping a lot, other people can't sleep. So the symptoms aren't going to be the same, but we have to combat everything else that's going on in our physiology as this energy is coming in while we're watching the insanity around us. Like
yeah. And
there's no shortage of entertainment, like real entertainment, adult entertainment, watching this play out, right?
yeah.
So
And it is something. And so, I just want to, you know, when we talk about energy, you're talking about unseen energies,
yes,
right? From the solar, energies, which we don't really even think about. We're like, oh, sunny day or not, but we don't recognize that there's just like you get a sunburn and you don't realize like if you didn't know better, you get a sunburn, you say, what happened? Okay, so this also, like you're saying, can be happening from extreme solar energies with, flares and weird stuff
CMEs.
that is, if you look at and again, I'm like, every time I look at this smart news that pops up on my phone, I said, like, is this real or are they just trying to like terrify everybody? Because I think I'm on the feed for getting all sorts of like doomsday uh highlights, but that we don't see it, but to pay attention to your body again, that going in, that recognizing. So what are some ways people can, and I was going to say around other people, like you're talking about individuals, and even that word egregores, a group energy can, cause our bodies to respond
In a way that's
with
not good
with
for us.
symptoms. So
Yes.
what are some of the ways people can protect themselves?
So it depends if they want to use their psychic energy, because our minds can create whatever we need. And so I show people how to create a shield around themselves,
Hmm.
how to feel their energy around themselves, know where their energy stops. So what happens when people are sending you stuff, sometimes it's called psychic attack for the ones who aren't aware. You just have to send it back, or you just put a shield up and say, no, I do not accept this. So you can do this, and this is all part of intention. I do not accept this nonsense. I do not accept your energy. And I'm working with a woman, she's gone through this quite a bit, and this is part of giving people the benefit of the doubt. Some women in her group wanted her to do something, and she said no, and she was the president, and she said no. Well, they sent her psychic attack in the form of a metal rod in her shoulder, so she couldn't move her arm. She was crying. So we had to go in and pull that out. But she was afraid to stand up for herself. And it was really interesting because she didn't want to be construed as not being nice, because you stand up for yourself doesn't mean you're not nice. It just means that you don't know how to protect yourself when you don't
Hmm.
stand up for yourself. So a lot of the crystals we were talking about, shungite is great for the 4Ds, 1 to 4. I don't know if it does the 5D. I have some in my car, even in the 4 door wells. I have a piece of shungite in each one, and I have one in my sunglass case with some meteorite. Meteorite also can deflect the energies. I think it's like kryptonite for Spider-Man. So basically, I've got a little pyramid in my car.
Superman.
What's that?
Superman.
Or Superman, sorry, yes. So I've got like a little pyramid around me, even when I'm driving out there. But you can use things like essential oils, you can use the crystals, you can use dowsing. And like, I used to go to the beach when there's a lot of people. I'm not a big fan of crowded places. I would go to the beach and I'd ask every time, is there anything I need to worry about here? And I always got no. And the only time I didn't do it, there was somebody there who was inappropriate. Right. So she was just inappropriate, period, with people. And I just laughed. So you can protect your energy and ask, is this a good day to go out? Am I okay on the road today? Ask for angels to protect you on your car. And if it's that psychic attack coming from hive mind, that's going to be a hard one, because you look at the battles that are going on, even if this is real. So we're going back to discernment. But you look in Paris, the battles that are going on, and watching the police just attack the public. The public's the one who pays their salary. And it's just insane how they just have a mob mentality that they're defending what, the establishment. So part of the
Yeah.
discernment is understanding others' intentions. Why would you think that you work for the police when it's taxpayers who pay your salary? Like, where did you get that impression, people? And I'm not putting down anybody in particular, but that mentality, that hive mind, that we can go to Ottawa and we can take the horses and we can run that little old lady over. Who, like, so you don't know what some people's intentions are. I don't know what's happening this weekend, April 1st, but they say there's a vengeance or something going on. So in
Oh, I
DC,
saw some sort of who put that out? And I got rid of regular TV, so I just have internet, and then I discern. I discern what I want to watch,
right.
which means though, I don't see like the news like I used to. Like I used to, like I could, it would just be on or whatever.
And I don't know
So
if this is in
I
the news. I don't think this is going to be in the news, but
yeah,
my understanding is it's coming to your city.
I
So
did,
then,
yeah, I did
so
see, I'm in Washington DC, by the way. I did see, what was it? I saw the poster. Somebody was warning that it was revenge for I guess the LGBTQ or something.
I'm not quite sure what it's revenge for. You're really over the target, and I know that. But my point is, who just gets to go up and do whatever they want to somebody on the street. So when you're looking at protecting yourself, understand the environment you're in. I would go to different rallies and people would tell me that there's going to be disruptions or whatever, and I
Yeah.
would use my discernment. And I'd think I'd ask, "Am I okay to go today?" And I'd get yes most of the time. See, I stopped going just because nothing's getting done with them. But it was just, it's not the point. The idea is that you
I
listen
don't,
to
yeah.
yourself. So does that mean you don't go out on Saturday? No, but you might just be a little more cautious when you're out and about.
Yeah,
So
I can't remember what it was for, but it was like like a, yeah, protest, sort of a issue thing about this weekend, I guess, in particular here in DC.
So this is
Uh,
discernment. So people can use discernment and decide they're not going to cause problems to somebody. You can discern, and that kind of takes us into the emotional intelligence. I don't know. I've looked online. I don't agree with their definition. It says it's about, oh, where am I here? Empathy,
of course, online they keep
motivation,
changing things.
self-regulation, self-awareness, and social skills. I don't know about that. If you're going to go out and hurt somebody, you're not an emotionally intelligent person because that's causing pain, right? And when I look at emotional intelligence, I look at it that it's so important to function in a relationship. It doesn't matter if you're having a conversation, as you're describing earlier, that you allow people to have their opinions. But to me, my definition of emotional intelligence is being responsible for your thoughts, feelings, actions, and beliefs.
Yeah,
So we're
personally
living in a
responsible.
very, yeah, be responsible. And we're living in, because if more people were responsible, this offside behavior wouldn't be happening, that, in my opinion, right? Because I think we can look after ourselves and we can make decisions as a group and not cause each other harm when we understand where our rights start and stop. But that's what, so emotional intelligence for me. So you can have, so if you're going to go out and beat somebody up, I'd say you don't have social skills. I'd say if you're going to go beat somebody up because they don't agree with you, I'd say you probably lack an empathy. I
Or worse are the people that just attack random strangers with no clue
Yeah,
about what they, is not even they're just making a statement by breaking a store window or
yes,
by, setting someone's car on fire. And they don't even know who it is,
no.
right?
So it
Yeah.
doesn't mean, it's just that they're pointing it out, this one group, but exactly what you're saying is it gets crazier and crazier. But who thinks they have the right to do this? Are people self-aware? Are
Even
they
sports
regulating
fans.
when they're doing that? Right. So a lot of these people are not emotionally intelligent. And I know there's four types of intelligence. There's IQ, which to me, IQ only is as good as, for most things, only as good as the programming, the information that you got, that you're basing your
Right.
knowledge on. Because if you've been given faulty knowledge, let's say about the pyramids, and you think you're an expert on the pyramids, well, if they've all been given faulty knowledge through all the tour guides and been told don't tell the truth, you're not an expert. You just think you have a lot of knowledge about the pyramids, right? And then there's curiosity, CQ, curiosity potential, and that's about being curious. Be curious about finding the truth in things. What if you're wrong about something? It's not the end of the world for any of us to admit we're wrong. It's easier for women, right? Because we can change our mind. It's our prerogative. But even if we're wrong, I thought this at that point in time, right?
Mhm.
And the last one's LQ, love potential, which is your capacity to operate with a loving heart, because not everybody can. And I think a lot of the people getting hurt are pure hearts, or people who don't know how to discern when they're in a dangerous spot.
Yeah, and a lot of people that do hop on the trends are people that are very caring and very loving, and they hop on, yeah, with the idea that they're doing it for because they love people, um, but
So
they don't stop
there's a
and
lack
say,
of emotional intelligence in there, because so think of Pepe Le Pew. Do you remember that cartoon with the skunk?
yeah,
And he just loved everybody, and all the other skunks would be like this. Maybe
yeah,
people don't want your love bomb on them, right? So people don't have a boundary. So when people say, "Oh, I'm just loving," I just want to do everything. I look at the fear in that, because they're not willing to stand up. They think if they go along, they're not going to get the spanking kind of thing. So
hmm,
there's all kinds of reasons for people who pretend they're loving, and if you challenge them, sometimes they block you. They're gone. They give you the
yeah,
silent treatment.
they don't love everybody, do they?
Yeah, they only love you when you go along with them, and that's kind of what you were describing before,
Yeah,
right? But we
that's
don't
sort of
have a,
like a narcissist trait too, isn't it?
you know,
You know, as long as you're serving my purpose, I love you.
And that can be
Yeah.
dangerous in intimate relationships, like between a man and a woman. That can be dangerous in workplace scenarios. That can be dangerous in families. That can cause a lot of unbalanced energy. And that's what I think a lot of what we're aiming for is staying in our balance and staying in our center as all these energies come in and we watch the insanity unfold. So that's what I think a lot of that is going to be, right? So
Yeah.
what did I put down for emotional intelligence? To me, it's integrity. Walk your talk. What are your values? Know what your values are. So when you're talking interest to a certain degree, but you have values. So I'll give an example. If you're a mountain climber and you're going to climb steep mountains and you're going to use a rope, that's not a value. That's common sense that if you're going to fall. But
Right. Yeah.
a value might be that there's a protocol that you follow, you know, that some people go first or whatever, that you want to get everybody through safely. That could be a value. And then I put moral compass, knows right from wrong, and practices healthy boundaries. It doesn't matter if they're emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, and when you're old enough, sexual, like you practice healthy boundaries. You know when you're right, start and stop. That's my definition
Yes.
of emotional intelligence, right? So I'm going to be doing more on this. I think people need, I think they would benefit from having this kind of information, even for themselves, so that they can start looking at it. I don't get to set anybody's compass. I don't get to set anybody's values. If we all were the same, how boring would this planet be with people, right?
We
So,
wouldn't have anything to talk about.
right? But this is all part
I
of our growth that we didn't get when we were
Yeah.
younger, maybe.
Or in some past life or past humanity stream of the third round or
Who
something
knows
like
what it is, right?
that.
And I
Right.
have a lot of questions about past lives. I don't necessarily believe everything that's been said. Who cares? It's my opinion. But I don't go and say, you got to listen to the way I see it. Like I don't do that with people. I let them go and find their own because they're going
Yeah.
to be the ones who live with that outcome.
Yeah. And just like anything else, you um like if someone's questions or interested in something like say past life um theory, or I provide like, well, read this book, this person, and here's some evidence from children that talk about with
Right.
um
Dolores Cannon's a good resource. There's a lot of
oh
people
yeah,
that, yeah,
Ian Stevenson. But as an example, um after passing that on, saying, well, here's part of why I believe, along with personal experience. And,
totally.
I can't prove anything to anybody. I said, but here's some information and that might help you if you have questions. And I don't know if they read it or not. They're like, no, I don't believe that stuff.
But that's
Um,
easier to be lazy sometimes.
and there's that discerning thing and talking about what comes from the outside and about that lens, or what Lingo Swan was talking about, putting up your blocks and saying, no, just no, I don't accept that, without stopping to discern and think about it and look at all the sides and say, is this true or not true? Is this real or not real? Is this right for me? I shared something with a friend of mine the other day. I said, isn't this interesting? It was a piece of artwork that had some words on it, that it was made in the 1800s. It had words on it that reflected, well, it said, it was an artwork from the 1800s, and it said Trump 45 on it. And the person who shared it on their social media said, well, this is one of those future kind of seeing things, maybe, because there's a lot of examples of ancient stuff that will, time is
Project into the
time is a
front.
big loop.
Yeah.
But I sent it to my friend. Their immediate response was Photoshop.
So,
And I'm
so
like, no.
imagination is part of discernment and knowing that things are possible. There was also a book out about Baron Trump from the late 1800s, Life of
Oh
Baron. I can't
yes.
remember what it was called. So we don't know how timelines work. And somebody just posted a picture in Iraq. I've heard this at different times, that there's a Stargate. That's what the war was really about, controlling the
I've
Stargate.
heard that too.
And
I've
there's a
heard that too.
video on Telegram. I think I put it on my Telegram within the last couple of days, and it just showed us a small clip of that. But there's many people who talk about stargates. Laura Eisenhower's talked about them. I can't remember if it's Lisa Renee, and she's actually said where the stargates are that she's aware of. So
Mm.
there's all kinds of things that we don't know. Do I want to know all of it? I'm not ready for all of it. Doesn't matter. I'm just looking at what interests me and staying true to myself, and that's what I ask for other people to do. But we still need that strong spiritual connection, which is truth and consciousness and awareness so that when these things come in. So I'll give an example, Operation Looking Glass. I was
Yeah.
kind of about that. Who cares if I'm right? Who cares if I'm wrong? But if they knew what was coming, all of that nonsense for the last 3 years about the white hats and everything's coming in wouldn't happen. And Trump would have known that they were recording him at Trump Towers if he had Looking Glass, and he didn't. So there's things, but there's people who would argue with me until they were blue in the face saying, no, it's real. It's okay to have your opinion because that's not hurting anybody. But I question certain things just because something's not adding up. And that's the other piece that I forgot to mention I wanted to touch on. If somebody's telling you something and something doesn't add up, it just doesn't, one thing doesn't make sense, then you don't have the whole picture. You might not have any of the picture. And this is another one of those things coming in. So somebody might tell you 3 truths and then slip in a deception. That's weird. Then you go back and you start at the beginning and you put all the truths together, because when you go back and start from the beginning, from the vantage point you have now with all the information, usually you get a different outcome. Did that make any sense? So I'll give you an example. So when I was doing financial planning for somebody, they would tell me, answer my questions, and then I would get things organized. They'd come in the next time and say, oh, I forgot one more thing.
Of
Okay,
course.
so then I'd adjust it. Then they come in the next time. This happened probably 5 or 6 times to the point. And they came in again and said, oh, I forgot about this too. So I have to go back and look at it. Came in again. So finally I went to my manager and I go, this plan doesn't even make sense to me anymore. He goes, go back to the very beginning now that you've got all the information and do it again. I thought, that's that simple. But it applies to a lot of things as we're growing in life, if that makes sense. So you hear one more piece of information and one more piece. And it's like what you're describing, that person who did something nice for you and your sister, and then turned around
Yeah.
and asked for a commission. So fine, you did something nice, but you're flagged right away when the next behavior is not in alignment with the first.
And you know what?
If
Sorry.
that makes sense.
Because of there's, I guess now I'm like, no, nothing to do with that person. I
Totally.
don't like, boom. I'm like, no, I'm not going to have anything to do with that person.
They destroyed your trust.
Yeah, it's like, no, because what could it be next? And it's kind of funny. We were talking about that character on the show, that this person, his wife finds out a bunch of stuff, and he sweet talks her right back in. And then she finds out again. And then, so it's this like, again, fool me once, shame on me,
Shame
or
on you.
whatever.
Fool me
Yeah, fool me
twice.
twice. Yeah. But something you said earlier, oh gosh, it reminded me of a quote, and I don't remember who said this, but I think it was, I think there's a quote that says, the person who stands for everything stands for nothing.
Yes. You stand for
But
nothing, you fall for everything. Both.
yeah, and
Either way.
and it's like, yeah, it's discern. Just say, yeah, don't run with the trend.
Yeah.
Just
Don't collect
because
causes.
it's like your mom used to say, if all your friends, jumped off the cliff, are you going to jump off the cliff? Yes. It's like, no, stop.
Right. And a lot of that isn't taught even to the younger generations. This has gone back a few generations, that they're not taught to use discernment. They're given a phone or an iPad, and just the electronics babysit a lot of ways right now. And there's all kinds of things, inappropriate information there that people are getting too. So the discernment, like you said, you weren't sure if you're on a doomsday feed. I look at it and you try to watch to see, and I change out the people I follow, and there's nothing wrong with who I follow, but maybe you've got enough information, or maybe the information's changed, or they've taken a different tact. It doesn't mean anything. It's just go where your heart leads you to go, right?
Yeah, this is like I get it from either Apple News or Smart News. Somehow it just pops up on my phone. I'm sure I signed up for something along the way. But like the latest one just popped up while we're talking. Scientists say the sun is, quote, waking up. What this means and the possible effects. That's not so bad. Middle of a period of heightened solar activity. Actually, this fits right into what we're talking about. That could increase the number of phenomena such as flares, coronal mass ejections, and geomagnetic storms. So there, science or the news is agreeing with what we're talking about.
Science says, but we don't know what impact it's going to have, and we don't know if it's
Yep,
man-made, some of it or not. And it doesn't matter because we're not in a
yep,
position to change it. So we just survive
yep.
it. is what
This
I,
same feed talks about, let's see, the other day it said, they discovered that there's a black hole close to our galaxy, and that it's where it's quickly moving toward us, or anyway, we're getting sucked into a black hole. Okay, let's see what else. The whole thing about the Earth is stopping to spin and go the other way, and we're overdue for the cataclysmic event. And I'm like, well, I could
we,
worry about it, but then what will
you can't. So
I
discern what's
think
in
I'll
front
just
of
have
you.
that extra glass of wine tonight. You know,
So we can
let's see, what am I?
discern what's around us and what matters to us, right? I can't do
Yeah,
anything whether that's real or not. And who would you trust in the science community to tell you the truth, because they get their
yeah.
grants from people who try to keep the truth from us. So it's
And
good, whatever it's going to be.
and the big discerning thing that kind of goes into the metaphysical science, AI, governments, world organizations, and or faith. Um, the one of the stories that they're saying, and I'm bringing this up because we're talking about discernment, is the whole idea about, like, a lot of people are waiting for the second coming of Christ, right? And I'm not a real Bible reader or understander, but I think it talks about he'll, come from the sky and reveal himself. So a lot of people are waiting for a physical
Because
image
that's all
of
they can
Christ in the
imagine.
sky. Now, some of you, you're talking about Laura Eisenhower, but not her necessarily, but there are some stories saying that there's going to be a false, fake, coordinated, either that, where they're going to actually somehow project holographically into the sky whoever the leader is, whoever it could
Right.
be Jesus, it could be Krishna, whatever. They're going to have some sort of an organized event that says this is it, and this is what you need to do, um, or a false alien invasion, or a real alien
And we won't know until the
visitation.
time comes.
Right. So whatever weird stuff might come up, like, I think it's time to learn discernment, and and how to just
Protect
be in your
yourself and
core.
disappear.
Just be okay with yourself, instead of this, like, this all started out with being buffered by, oh no, I have to do, like, just know yourself. Who said that? Know thyself. Socrates, I think,
I think it was, yes.
or
So,
Plato.
but the idea though is because there's so much coming at us, it's more difficult to discern, but we still have the right to do it. But if we're discerning in a way that's causing pain and suffering to others, we still have to consider our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, all of that, right? But I
Yeah.
think that's a great point to stop today, if that's okay with you. So I will post your information again in the description box, and we'll do this again. And hopefully, if people have topics they want us to discuss, please just put them in the comments section for where the videos go up, and we'll look at information that we have that we can help, because we're not the only, like, there's many people waking up, but they just sometimes it's asking the question, you don't know what question you want. And an example, I had done a video about romance, and somebody said, can you do a video on expectations in
Oh,
romance?
perfect.
Doesn't mean I have all
Yeah.
the answers, but that's a great topic. So, and
Yeah.
I'll put my information in the description box. If you like this video, please hit the like button and share it with people, because we want to reach the people who are looking to wake up, that they actually want something more. They want guidance or just an idea of where they can look for information. Of course, you can contact either of us, and we'll see you next time.
And I'm
Thanks a
looking
lot,
forward to
Desiree.
flipping this around and interviewing you on my
Perfect.
show, and find and I want to, when we get there, I want to just learn about you and your practice and what you do for people. So
Sure. I'd love
thanks
to.
for having
Okay.
me.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.